Hi, Jean.
I'd like to call the Capital Improvement Committee meeting of Thursday, September 16th at 2 o'clock to order. Before we do the reorganization, I just want to acknowledge a note that we got from the senior center, or the adult social center. If you remember, we had put the recommendation forward to redo the flooring over there. I guess it was quite the success. So there's a little note that says, "The Capital Committee, the staff and the patrons at the Adult Social Center would like to thank you for your support in our flooring project. The floor has added a huge amount of safety. Thank you, Patrice and Jennifer."
Great.
So the first thing on the agenda is reorganization. Oh,
I'll sit here. This is a circle.
okay, okay.
It's customary for these boards to do the reorganization in this fashion. The floor is now open to nominations for the post of chairman.
I would like to nominate Mike Fitzpatrick. I think he's done a good job this past year.
I'll second.
Is there any
The
others?
nomination and a second. Is there another nomination? Any others? Going once, going twice, going 3 times.
Try one more.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That was easy.
All right. Does this board committee require a vice chair?
No, but you should.
Okay.
And we
If you
have
can't
had
make
one.
it-
Yeah, I'd like to entertain because it's reorganization, a nomination for the vice chair position.
Do it again? I'll do it. I nominate Ben Tessino for vice chairman.
We have a nomination. Do we have a second? Any other suggestions? I see none. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you guys for taking.
Oh, Gene wants to do it.
Oh,
Gene, you can't.
But we have Stephanie, who's our new minute taker over in the corner.
Oh,
Watching the first round of meetings.
Yep.
When you make
Yep.
a motion, can you announce your name? And if you can, say who
okay.
motioned, who seconded, so it's easier for her on tape later.
sure.
So on the nomination for chair, the motion was made by Shirley Mazinski and seconded by Ellie Chesborough. On the motion for vice chairman, it was made by Brandon Ogier and seconded by Ellie Chesborough.
Who was the nomination for?
Ben Tessino.
Ben.
And one more request, if you could just go around and introduce yourself so she can put a face to the
Yep.
name. I'll wait till it heads up.
And that lady that's doing all the talking is Jean Lovett.
God bless her.
So I'm Mike Fitzpatrick, appointed as the chair again,
Ben Tessino.
as vice chair.
Brandon Ogier.
Shirley Mazinski.
Ellie Chesborough.
Absent is Ken Vincent, and he has an excused absence. He was preoccupied. Also in attendance is Matt Wojcik, town administrator, and Jean Lovett.
Thank you.
Seeing nothing else that we need to talk about, we'll get into our agenda items. Number 2, there's 5 sections to it, so we'll take them one at a time. The first one is special article number 3 for the ceiling repairs at the Simon Fairfield Public Library. I don't know if anybody's aware of it, but the horsehair plaster is coming loose on the ceilings. It's in danger of collapsing and coming down, so it needs to be addressed at some point. I did reach out to Justin just to see if he could attend our meeting. He was waiting for a contractor to come in, one of the plastering contractors to come in today to give him a quote, and he was going to show up anytime between the beginning of the day and 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So if he made it in time, he was going to show up. He has another contractor that's coming out on Saturday, and then there's a third contractor as well that's going to give him a price. So hopefully he gets 3, but if he gets at least 2, at least we'll have some basis as to move forward. We do not have any guesstimated numbers for that, so I would like to ask the administrator, how would you like to, we should keep that on the warrant? When do we have to make up our mind on that?
I might as well just, instead of being up and down, I'll just
Yeah.
stay here. This has got to be done, right? And I don't think we're going to burst any significant procurement threshold.
No.
So I was thinking it's going to be somewhere between 15 and 20,000, kind of depending, there's
Yeah,
a lot of
yeah.
staging, it's high up.
Yeah, prevailing wage.
Prevailing wages is, will have to be paid. So we'll wait until we get at least one quote.
Yeah,
And we'll put that number into the, we'll factor in a contingency, we'll put that on the warrant.
yeah.
And then if we get more information before then, and we need to refine that, and the warrant's still open,
Yeah.
we'll keep editing it. But that's ballpark. Do you think that's a decent ballpark?
Yes, I believe so. Would it be proper for me to suggest that we even just consider moving forward with it, barring not having that number? Or is
You
that?
could do a not to exceed, that you would support an amount not to exceed. And if we needed more than you've said, we could come back to you and ask you again, or ask the selectmen to change it. This has been hard. It's been really hard to get people to come out and look at this that are willing to do it for a number of issues. It's old construction, it's really high up, and it's really not a big job. So
Yeah,
those three things.
and we're also looking to, there's 2 different ways you can approach a job like this. Horsehair plaster, the plastic goes through the lats and it mushrooms out, and that's what holds it in place. Well, unfortunately, over time, that fractures and it all comes loose, and that's what's actually going on. So you could either remove it, or you can go over it. So if you put another layer of a minimum of half-inch drywall material over that to hold everything in place, then you can plaster over the top of that. It just needs to be done. And we have to wait for those numbers to come in to see what it is. I would, if we were going to put a number on it, I would probably use 20 or 25,000 on that just to be safe. Hopefully it comes in less than that. I'm optimistic that it would. But anyways, Shirley, you had a question on that?
I do. So we're looking at that particular number, where is this money coming from?
That would be appropriate from free cash.
Okay. And Jean, you agree?
Or new growth, what do you want to use?
Well, new growth is going to be absorbed with the Article 1.
Okay.
You could either do that, or there's a couple articles that are on this town meeting that I'd like to use the closeout of some of the older projects. So one of them is the highway dump truck. There's $9,480 left on that project, which is complete. So I'd like to close that up. So either for this or for the match for the brush truck, which you'll see a little further in the agenda. And there's also going to be residual from the post office painting. So I would like to close out both of those accounts into as funding sources. The residual would be from free cash.
Right. Question answered, Shirley?
Yeah.
Would you prefer that we vote on that now instead of trying to hold it open? I'm comfortable moving forward with it if everybody else is.
If you said a not to exceed amount, and then we're under, then we'll
Yeah,
just put it in the
right.
warrant and publish.
Anybody have any issues or comments on that process?
What's your not to exceed number, though?
We're going to put 25. I would recommend 25. It's up to everybody here if they have a difference of opinion, but there's no sense in us trying to cut it close and then have to come back for a meeting just to raise it up to a 3,000.
So another question?
Yes.
So if we make a motion for that not to exceed 25,000, and do we include coming from free cash, or, because that looks like it's kind of open?
the funding source will decide when I do the motions. You don't have to vote on that.
Okay, all right.
If you can just vote.
We don't typically get involved in the funding source, do we?
We don't.
We consider it, but we don't
Yeah.
dictate as to where it comes
You
from.
ask, but
Yeah.
the motion's usually done on our side after.
Okay, all right.
Well, you good, Ellie?
Yeah, my house is older than the library and it has horsehair.
We can't do your house.
Well, should I be worried? It's 100
No,
years
no,
old,
no.
or it's-
No, there's a couple, there's
Stronger when your house is.
there's a couple of different factors. You have such a large ceiling there. You have traffic going up into the attic that would cause some vibrations going in the building. And you also are right on Main Street, and you have a lot of vibration traffic that's coming through. So with all those factors in there, that's probably what's causing the issues up there. I looked at it pretty well, and it's not a moisture issue or anything like that. It's just failing.
Can you talk a little bit about insurance, the little piece you told me about the insurance? Because I was thinking it
What?
was caused by a storm.
No, it wasn't caused by a storm. You have a brick building there, which is very stable, so a wind's not going to move the building around to make the building shake. You have, if you go into the front, into that building, you take a right, you go into that front right-hand corner room, look right up in the very corner, you have a yellow stain that's about this long and about this wide from some ice dam or some leak that happened last year or the year before, according to Justin. None of that damage that's in there is caused by a storm or weather or anything like that. That building's not moving. I'd be more inclined to see your house move because of the way it's constructed with boards. That's all brick and mortar. There's no possible way that's moving around.
Except if the mortar isn't sticking bricks together. Haven't we talked about getting it resealed, or what is it called when you get
Repointed?
pointed?
You might need some minor pointing to it, but it's not enough to make that building structurally move around.
Perhaps Mr. Fairfield neglected to pay prevailing wage.
No, he probably didn't put sealer on his bricks. But,
It was just named after him. You know where the land came from? It was Schuster. So it was, it just, they liked the Fairfield, so they named the place after him.
okay, if there's no more discussion on that ceiling, I'd like to entertain a motion.
I move to the capital committee recommend the ceiling repairs at the Simon Fairfield Public Library not to exceed $25,000.
I second that.
A motion by Shirley Mazinski, seconded by Brandon Ogier. Any other discussions?
I always bring this up because this committee is thick with police and fire on it. So, anyway.
I'm not involved in either one of them unless I'm going too quick.
So I'm wondering if I should abstain from voting because I am on the library trustee, and is that?
No, I don't. I, for one, am comfortable with you having it. Actually, you had good input into the conversation, more input than anybody else had. It just questioning as to how we're going to do it. How do you feel about it, Ben?
I'm good with it.
No problems? You have a problem with it?
No, I seconded the motion.
Do you have a problem with, no, with Ellie's participation?
Oh, I'm sorry. I have no issue with that.
Yeah.
I don't have an issue. I just would appreciate Matt as our guide.
Yeah, I'm just going around the table, and Matt would have been the last one in line.
So this committee is created by bylaw, and the bylaw specifies that up to 5 members of this committee may be department heads or representatives of a department.
Yep.
And I think that is your ethical absolution from participating. You are not benefiting in any way financially, correct?
Yeah, but I think I am the library nomination. I don't think I'm a Shirley.
You're not a public member, I think you're a department member, and I think
Yeah.
the fact that the bylaw specifies that department heads would, as long as they're resident of Douglas, would be on this committee, I think you're fine. I don't think there's any issue.
So no further, you good?
I guess so.
Okay. We're all good with you, so don't worry about it.
So did you vote?
No,
Yeah,
I haven't-
no, she would vote. We're going to do that next. So now that we had a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. You're in the fire department? No. I was just teasing. The next one is a special article, number 5, town matches for assistance to the firefighters grants for the purchase of the brush truck. We have Kelly Manning in the audience.
We're just trying to pull up the slideshow here. I just like to, when I talk about my items, I think it'll be a lot easier for you guys to take a look at what I'm talking about if we have the photos up. So if we can give it one more second.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I'll come up and
Yep.
chat about it with you guys.
You want to try this on the computer again?
I don't think it'll work because that's like Keynote, it's Mac. I just. Even if I can scroll down, this is something else. But it's like,
All right, so while you're doing that, I'm just going to jump past you for a minute.
that's fine.
So we're just going to take something out of line. This is a special article number 9, the town shares of the cleanup costs arising from the oil spill in the municipal center basement to include the replacement of day tank and pump system. Matt, would you like to speak on that, please?
So, I was going to produce that report. We have the environmental consultant that has been with us since the day of the spill and has been shepherding this through the recovery process, the cleanup, has been reporting on a regular basis and itemizing costs on a regular basis, because our insurance policy covers the first $500,000 of cost, less the deductible, obviously. And it's a very small deductible, it's $2,500, I think. Everything past that, and we, during the insurance discussion at the select board, when the select board was hearing different vendors pitch their insurance plans, we heard that this is capped at $500,000, and frankly, no one will write any policy, or they will, but it's going to cost you arm and a leg to get more than $500,000 on environmental liability. So we're capped, and our expenses, the last time Adam and I got a report, were really close to exactly $600,000. So the town is on the hook for $100,000. Is that number potentially going to grow? Theoretically, yes. Realistically, knock on wood, probably not. There's been, so just to kind of go back over what happened, we had about 300 gallons of oil, heating oil on the floor. The building is old. Some of that oil seeped underneath the floor of the municipal center, particularly in areas where there had been perforations for pipes and for a sump pump and other things that were there, and some underneath the stairway. And the water got, the oil got into the groundwater in one specific location. So they came with a great big Vector truck. You probably saw it. It was parked out here for weeks, making a horrible racket all day while people were trying to work. And it basically used that to suck up all of the contaminated dry soil, sandy soil, gravel underneath the building. It got to the point where they were actually mining under structural supports of the building, and concrete.
Underneath the boiler?
Concrete had to be poured to shore things up, and everything went through the building commissioner and structural engineer reports and all of that. That groundwater situation would be potentially Pandora's box. The good news is that after the test pipe has been bailed twice, with an interval of time in between, and the test came back with no oil. So we're hoping that there was just a little bit of contamination once it was pumped, and there was some exposure to the air, the volatiles, have moved out, and we get a couple more clean tests, and we'll be able to close out. Now, when I say to include, so that's the 100,000, that's going to be there for our vendor. But the way I wrote this up for your consideration is now, we're not going to go back with the same pump and day tank that we had that caused the spill. Actually, the pump is broken, so it has to be replaced. So there is a new system that will be installed, and I'm waiting for Adam to round out that cost. But this is going to be no less than 100,000, and I'm thinking it's going to be closer to 125,000. But that's just you might have to do another not to exceed vote because we're missing information. I got the final design on the pump was just circulated by Adam the other day, and I didn't look at the price tag on it. Are there any other questions about what's going on with this? Oh, I guess I should say this. As much as I feel comfortable saying on camera in public, the town has requested that our property casualty insurer participate in conversation with other communities that have had a similar experience within the last year for either subrogation or litigation against the heating oil contractor, the vendor that sold us the oil. That particular vendor is Peterson. The Massachusetts Attorney General has already fined Peterson $250,000 for over-mixing biofuels into residential heating oil. So there's actually a recovery fund, and Mike can say more if he wants to about his experience with it, but there's a fairly significant number of homes in Massachusetts where, and I think the culprit is chicken fat, it was part of the biofuel, and it doesn't play nice with petroleum. It precipitates out and turns into sludge, and then blocks pipes and pump floats and everything else. I think it's incumbent upon our insurer, because they are also the insurer for the Dayton-Rehoboth School District, and Dayton-Rehoboth had a monster spill far worse than ours. A lot more money. I don't want to see our property casualty insurer walk away from $1 million without actually explaining to us why they wouldn't file a lawsuit or join a settlement group, try to negotiate with Peterson. So that's where we are with that. So, but I don't want to hold that out as saying we're going to be reimbursed for this, because I wouldn't be able to say that. But we are pursuing opportunities to get reimbursed on a product liability, or basically product liability theory.
I was going to ask about that, because I remember reading in the paper about it and wondering if the 1 year, how many years did we use Peterson, that might have caused something? Or?
So it was only one, and we had gone out with the schools the year before, so we were on Santa Energy, and then Peterson won both the schools and the municipality. And the year after all of this happened, the French River Educational Buying Group, Hvac, actually put in their fuel specs that they would not buy any fuel with more than 10% biofuel. We have made that part of our procurement spec too. I don't know if anybody from Peterson listens to Capital Committee meetings in Douglas at 2:30 in the afternoon, but I can promise you that when we open bids for heating fuel this year, that if Peterson is the low bid, they will not be getting the business. I'm going to rule them out. I'm going to disqualify them as an irresponsible bidder. I have no intention of doing further business with that company until they resolve this issue.
Good information.
Are you comfortable with that 125?
If you do a not to exceed there, then
Should be fine.
actually, you've heard me talk about, are you ready to go, Kelly?
I am.
Why don't you hold off, Mr. Chairman, if you
Okay.
could, I'm making a
That's fine.
motion. I'll go
Yep.
get Adam's quote, and I'll see if that number makes sense.
Very good. So we're going to table the oil cleanup for the moment. We're going to allow Kelly to do her presentation. She has a number of things that she needs to show us.
Hi.
So I guess the first thing we'll talk about is your match on the brush truck that you're looking for.
Sure.
So thank you for being patient with me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys. Chief Vincent couldn't be with us today, unfortunately. So I'll start with talking about our grant that we just got for a forestry vehicle. We were awarded an Assistance to Firefighters grant on September 4th of this year. So just to give you guys a little background on this project, it has been on our capital plan for quite a few years now. Unfortunately, it hasn't taken, I won't say unfortunately, but it has not taken priority. We have other more pressing needs. We had the opportunity to go after this funding for the last couple of years, and this year we were actually successful in getting it. So I'd like to really talk about some of our wildland fire risks, our current fleet, and what our plan is going forward as we acquire this new vehicle with help from the grant as well as town funding. So I have a little bit of a presentation here with some pictures just to keep this moving along. So we have been experiencing more severe brush fire seasons, particularly FY 20 and 21, which caused us to do another risk assessment of our forestry fleet, how we handle brush fires and the potential impact could be to the town if we had a severe fire incident. As some of you recall, we had a severe incident in town in 2001 where we burned over 200 acres in the state forest. We also had a significant fire in a residential neighborhood in 2013 up in the Eagle Drive area that threatened homes and burned some property. And we have more and more homes being constructed on the edge of the state forest and other wooded areas. So looking at all this, there's a potential to impact travel routes, power transmission lines, water infrastructure. You know, we know what's going on in California, all the health risks of the smoke. We have a lot of agriculture and animals and things like that going on in town, as well as the loss of use of open space. I think with the COVID-19 pandemic, we've had more and more people utilizing the state forest. At least I go out there a lot, and the trailheads are absolutely packed. So that's a very important resource that we protect in our community. If we look at, so I know this is kind of like a grainy looking map. If you see Douglas down at the bottom there, it's one of the few communities on this map in bright red, and I know you guys can't read the little legend at the bottom, but basically this is data gathered from wildland fires from 2001 to 2009, and it shows that despite Douglas only having about 50 actual brush fires during that time period, we burned over 300 total acres. There's only 2 other communities which are in red. There's one towards the center, like western part of the state, as well as up on the North Shore that's in red, that burned over 300 acres, but they did it with a lot more brush fires. So what that tells me is the brush fires we have in Douglas, they may not be as frequent, but when we have them, they're bad, they're severe, and that sort of thing. So it's certainly a risk to our community. Our current fleet. So currently we have a 1973 FMC tanker truck, Tanker 1, which is what this grant was put in to replace. We also have a 1987 FMC military tanker, same style of truck that's a little bit newer. And then we have our 2007 Ford F-350 with a skid unit that was built by fire department personnel in the late 90s. So if we look at the average age of our fleet, it's 32 years old. And with the level of risk that we have in town right now, having a fleet that's 32 years old appeared to be a risk to us, especially as we looked at replacing parts with these trucks and some of the issues. So if I look at this tanker, although we built it, it's a very cool truck. It can only be driven by a few personnel. It has no power steering. We've experienced problems with the brakes in the past. It's a manual transmission. It was surplus equipment, came from the Westover Air Force Base in the late 90s. It was a fuel truck. So it's basically outlived its safe and useful life here in Douglas. So this grant is going to replace that, as well as our current vehicle, which is our F-350 that has a skid unit. So this truck carries 200 gallons of water, which equates to about 1,700 pounds of weight, which is actually a lot for that truck. The skid unit was constructed in 1997. Like I said, we've had many issues with the pump breaking over the last 3 years, especially this past fiscal year when our fire season, we were really, really busy for several months there when it was really dry out. This truck also cannot pull water from a static source, so some of you may or may not know we have water holes in the state forest that you could actually pull water from. This truck does not have the capability to do that. It only seats 2 personnel, it doesn't have a winch, and it's overloaded. It's not the safest configuration to go down the road for that reason, as well as if we look at the back of it, we've got a lot of stuff here crowded around the pump that's got to be taken out before we can operate it. We've got items that are bungee corded onto the side of it because we have no place to put them, which is obviously not safe going down the road. That saw was donated to us from DCR, one of those things. A lot of this stuff has been built by firefighters or donated. So like I said, the truck's been on the capital plan. We applied for this same grant in 2019. We were not successful at that time. At that point in time, we had applied for $273,000 pre-COVID. The cost to build a similar truck now is probably slightly higher as materials have gone up. So the maximum amount that the federal government will award for this type of vehicle is actually $250,000 with a 5% match from the city or town that's awarded the grant. So for us, we were awarded $238,095.24 with a $11,905 match. What we are asking for is $40,000, which includes that 5% match, for the reason that we had originally spec'd out to purchase a flatbed versus a utility body truck. The utility body truck's a little bit less expensive, but we're afraid that it's not going to have the longevity of a flatbed truck and/or meet our needs in terms of types of equipment that we have to store on it. So with this, we would be able to outfit the truck with new fittings for the pump and equipment that we couldn't use from our old brush truck. So this, let this thing catch up. This is very similar to the vehicle that we will be purchasing. We've been in contact with 3 vendors, Firematic, Bulldog KME, which is the vendor that we purchased Engine 3 from in 2017, as well as New England Fire Equipment and Apparatus Corporation. We've also spoken to other communities that have built these trucks, and they have told us that the flatbed configuration is the way to go, even though it's a little bit more expensive than the utility body. We were warned by somebody who is an auto body mechanic that utility bodies have issue with rust and corrosion, particularly the steel ones, and when they get damaged, which sometimes happens when you're bringing these things in the woods, they're costly to repair and difficult to repair. And with them being painted on the side, so here's an example of a utility body truck, that will get all scuffed up versus you have a brushed aluminum body that does quite well in the woods. And as you can see, the truck on the right-hand side, it's got a very high ground clearance in comparison to this vehicle. So we feel that this would best meet our needs now and into the future for a long time, which is why we're asking for a little bit more money, as well as the fact that the cost of materials, cab and chassis, has gone up with COVID-19. I mean, I think that goes without saying. So that's, you guys have any questions about that? That's kind of my elevator speech on the.
You good on that right now?
Yes, I am.
I have one question before I open it up to everybody else. Did you actually quote this out, or is that a guesstimated price of $273?
Nope, we actually quoted it out when we originally went for the grant in 2019.
2019.
Correct.
So what would today's number be? Because I bought my truck outside in 2019. It was 73,000. Now it's 90.
Understood.
So just want to make sure that we're not putting you in a position where you can't get the truck once you get it appropriated, because somebody over there will make sure that we adhere to our numbers.
I understand.
Yeah.
I think we're in the neck of the woods talking to the specific vendor who quoted us on that. And again, that number can be adjusted if we have to maybe remove some options that we had wanted. So for one option that might be a little bit costly that we wanted that we don't currently have, it's an item called a turret on the front, where we could actually drive down a fire road and spray on either side, as well as we can play with the numbers a little bit depending on what type and style of pump we get. So that number's a little bit flexible.
Yeah, just so you understand, because you haven't been in front of me on the board anyways, I always like to make sure that whatever comes through that we approve and recommend forward will succeed.
Correct.
So I'm not looking to overinflate numbers, but I want to make sure that you're not trying to be too conservative and then it doesn't work. So that's the reason why I ask you these questions. questions.
the conservative number would have been 250,000, and we would have
Yeah.
figured out a way to make it work to the best of our ability. So by having that little bit more money, I believe that we're going to be in good shape.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions for Kelly?
Kelly, could you just go back to the figures?
This one?
Yep.
Sure.
Okay. So your grant, excuse me, was for 250,000 or 238?
238,9524.
I'm asking Kelly.
Okay, sorry. I was only playing chairman.
I know.
No problem.
So we
Sorry.
were awarded
Okay.
$250,000, and the
Yeah.
community is required to have a 5% match, and that brings it down to $238,095.24, with our 5% share being that $11,905.
So the grant wasn't 250.
It really wasn't, and that's unfortunately the way, and we got our ladder truck through the same grant program where the town, I think at the time in 2005, had to spend $25,000. That was the 5% match. So it is a little bit deceiving, and it was also deceiving that I had put 273 in the grant application, and even in talking with the people that deal with these grants, told them the amount of money I was going for, they didn't tell me that the maximum that FEMA would award is 250 for that type of vehicle. So, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. So
Ellie?
basically what you're asking from the town is 40,000.
Correct, and that
Thank you.
includes that 5% match.
So,
It's really like 28 on top of the 5% match, 28,000.
Sure.
Yeah.
so again, Jean, where would this be coming from? Recommendations?
Probably free cash. Again, I'll use the other two, I'll figure out where I'm going to use
Yep.
the close out of the other two, and then use free cash as the other funding source.
Okay, thank you.
You good now?
Yes, thank you.
No problem. Go ahead, Ellie.
You had mentioned that the flatbed and the utility body, whatever, have different life expectancies.
Correct.
So how long is this? Is it 3 years or 30 years?
Can I help you with that, Kelly?
Absolutely.
All right. So if you have a flatbed truck, it's just a flatbed truck. It has smooth sides on it. If you have a utility truck, it has doors on it. It's made of steel. It's going to collect water and whatnot in there.
That has doors on it.
Go to
let me put up the
go to the utility body.
It's coming. Come on.
But stay there for a second. So
Okay.
if you're going through the woods, okay, and you run over a rock while you're going down the trail, and the truck shifts to the right, you got a big rub rail right down the side of that bed that's going to protect that body. So if you can go to the utility body, please.
I am trying.
All right, so,
That's not a utility body?
no, it is not. No, that's a box, that's an aluminum box up on top of the
This is a
flatbed.
utility body. I'll slide this, I have a little
Yeah.
picture for you.
It's the other
So that
one.
utility body, see the doors on the sides of it?
Yeah.
They're problematic.
Both flat?
Yes, they are.
But that
Yep,
one
yeah,
is
those are
smaller.
boxes on top. Yep.
Okay. So, and how long do they last?
So I think for our use with that flatbed truck, we'll get at least 20 years out of it. And the utility body might be 15 if we're lucky before corrosion takes over. It's a common body type for, you see plumbers' vans and stuff like that, but you can see all the corrosion that runs through them. And what really sold us to not go with that type of body, we actually went to KME Bulldog to look at one because they had one they were building, and we opened the compartment and there was already rust in it, and they hadn't even delivered it to the department that had purchased it yet. And I said, well, so you got some rust in here, and they go, oh, we got to paint over that. And I'm like, well, that's a good indication that might not be an appropriate choice for us.
Utility body by design do rot out. So they came out with fiberglass ones, but that's worse because now they're very brittle. If you happen to bump into something with it, it's going to break. It's going to be a lot of maintenance to it. Utility body is actually a wise choice to go with a flatbed versus a utility body.
There
Here it is. Yeah.
There you go. See those doors? So if you have somebody a little overzealous going down the trail, hits that same infamous rock, that rolls over, and it'll cave in the side of that because it has no rub rail on it. And just out of regular use of those doors, they're not gonna last long.
The particular vehicle we're looking at speccing has the Nerf bars that come all the way down the side, so trees can rub along it and it won't contact the body. And the issue with this is we measured our equipment and it's not going to fit into those compartments. It's actually pretty narrow, so I don't want to be bungee cording items on it and have it fall off the road and hit or hurt somebody really at the end of the day, so.
Anybody else have anything? Good. You okay? I knew you'd have something. Come on.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious about, I mean, because I love the idea of mutual aid. So you must have a lot of cities and towns that can, and I remember that fire because I used to work in Sturbridge and I knew one of the firemen in Sturbridge, and he was over here fighting the fire, and that was quite something. There was so much mutual aid fighting that fire and at the time. So, you know, how does that fit into your whole, I mean, you have the mutual aid that you can depend on as well, right?
Yeah, so I actually talked about this a little bit in the grant application. We hope that by having a new modern forestry vehicle, it'll allow us to get to a fire more quickly and with less issues of having mechanical breakdowns, which we have had at fires, where we had to wait for another one of our fire trucks to come and start to mitigate the incident. So by getting a small fire under control, it will prevent us from having to maybe have a big fire and call on excessive mutual aid, but it'll also make us more valuable for our mutual aid partners, especially because that truck will be able to draw water from a static source. They might send us to go do something like that, and in our current configuration, we can't really do that. And because the the towns rely so heavily on each other, I think that it's important for our to be able to provide fast and efficient service to the surrounding communities too, even though I know that's not our main thought process and objective here, but we rely on them quite heavily in town as well. Did that answer what you're saying?
No, but it's a fine answer.
Okay.
So that's why I'm not going to pursue it anymore. So.
No, very entertaining for a second. Just from an economical standpoint, you're looking at acquiring a valuable piece of equipment for the town for less than 15% of the cost of the vehicle, is what it comes down to. That's why I pulled my phone out. I
applaud that you have gotten this grant.
Even with the extra money, it's only like 13.6% of the overall cost of the vehicle.
I took 40,000 divided by 273, came up with 14.6.
Oh, all right.
Anyways, either way.
We're in the next one.
Anyways, we're less than 15% of the cost of the vehicle. Does anybody else have anything on this brush truck? Ellie? Shirley?
No?
Are we
Any-
the only questioners?
Excuse me? Well, we're the ones on the committee, so we're going to do that until we ask anybody else if they have any comments. We have the chairman of the selectmen in the room. He might be just observing, or he may have an interest in commenting on this, or the town administrator or our finance director. Anybody have any questions, comments? I see none. Entertain a motion on this brush truck.
So how did you want that worded?
Well, you make a recommendation to for the town match for assistance to purchase the brush truck.
No, but it was not to exceed, or was it a?
That's a
No,
$50,000.
at the $40,000 number, according to her. Yep.
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you.
So we have a motion by Shirley, seconded by Brandon. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
With that, I have to take off to work.
Okay, so now we're faced with a problem. 1, 2, 3, 4, need 5 votes.
Well, do you have 5 minutes?
I have 5 minutes.
I can gag these two? All right, so let's do this quickly.
About it after you leave.
The last thing, Article 12, to see if the town will vote to appropriate funds from free cash, so the question's already answered, Shirley, for the following projects: fire station electrical upgrade and replacement of the emergency generator. That was a result of a lightning strike that we had, within the last 60 days? Something like that, Matt? June, okay. And fire station roof replacement and building weatherization. Last year, the roof was on there. I questioned why we needed a new roof. However, during my frequent passing of the fire station, I noticed that we were actually missing shingles, and I suggested to Adam to look into that for us. And it does need a new roof, so that's why that's on there. And it would be advantageous to do the weatherization at the same time, because there's areas of the building that cannot be accessed from inside. It would be easier to do it from the outside while the roof is being done. So that's why all those items are on there. Anybody have any questions on these?
I just would like to have, how much?
Adam hasn't provided me with any quotes.
I have a roof quote if that's helpful.
Excuse me?
I have a roof quote if that is helpful.
Okay, so if we have the roof quote, but I'm going to also ask Matt to speak on the electrical upgrade as well as the emergency generator, because he's done a lot of work on
Would you guys
preparing
like
this.
copies of the assessment done by the engineer? I brought them.
So I distributed that to everyone electronically. That doesn't mean they printed it out. So we had asked Kevin Murphy, who's the electrical engineer, when any building is struck by lightning, you have to have an expert come and test. I've got it. And review whether that damage caused by the lightning was more widespread, because a lot of times electrical damage caused by lightning takes a while to materialize. It's only when you do something, all of a sudden you realize the piece of equipment's not functional. The damage from the lightning is an insurance claim, and I think it's, what, $8,000. It's not a lot. The survey of the building's electrical capacity that was part of the conversation about what was damaged is what has driven this report that was circulated about a week ago. And the final report includes a lot of work that Mr. Murphy did on cost estimates, so he really wanted to get down to, actual numbers that he was able to get from vendors for different products, and looking at prevailing wage, estimating time. Long story short, the building has 400 amps of single-phase electrical service. To properly run the fire department with the size department that we have, we need 600 amps of three-phase service. Instead of having a 30 kW generator, I think he wants to go with a 150. So that we can actually open and close garage doors, charge radios, charge CPR monitors, and all the things that we're supposed to be able to run in an emergency department if we lose power from the street for a temporary amount of time. So the all-in cost of replacing the generator, upgrading the service from the street, and addressing some wiring issues inside the building with contingencies both for design and construction of 10% is $292. And the roof is, what did you get for a quote, 60?
60,000.
How much?
60,
60,000?
For roof?
yes.
So that's over, that's 350 now?
352.
How much of this,
Go
So-
ahead.
Yeah, I think I'm going to help answer questions Ellie, I'm getting vibes from Ellie on what she's going to ask.
I could see that going.
I'm respectful of Brandon's time, but I got to explain things. About a year ago, I started to have this sense that this building was going to need some help before the lightning hit it. Because we're loading the place up with stuff. There's not a lot of receptacles to plug into. It badly needs weatherization. We have very inefficient air handling systems there, so the boiler is massive. It roars through heating fuel, would just blow the stuff out, the heat out the leaky building. So we started to really say, you know what, this is one of our newest buildings in town. We really need to take care of it, because it's going to have to last.
Some photos here if you guys want to look.
So in terms of being able to leverage outside funds to do any of this, we are kind of on the hook for the electrical piece and for the roof piece. Our Green Communities grant will include all new lighting. So we will upgrade all of the lighting fixtures in this building to LED. And I'm seeking a determination for the eligibility of all heating, ventilation, and air conditioning to be covered by ARPA, which I would be putting in front of a group to prioritize for that. So we can kind of, this is really soup to nuts and a full overhaul of a building that is now at the point where it needs an overhaul.
So we shouldn't need to consider the weatherization portion, because I was going to ask that, because we just talked about 60 for the roof.
I
and
don't
290.
want the roof project to be delayed or sidelined by the Green Communities process. I think there's a time and a place for it. If we go back to them for weatherization, it would be for the doors and the windows.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Go ahead, Ellie. I know you were waiting patiently.
I guess I didn't do a good enough job.
He tried, Brandon, he tried.
Yeah, I only got some of them.
Well, no, I'm wondering why most of this is something that I would prefer being brought up at an annual town meeting capital thing. And I don't like it when, I always think of the special town meetings as very special interest. I think of capital is more of an annual one, and that's why I would like to wait on this type of thing. I know we've talked about the roof for 3 or 4 years, and I know that Charlie and I have both mentioned, what about a metal roof? It's a lifetime guarantee, and apparently we've been ignored.
Okay, so if everybody else doesn't mind, let me comment on this real quickly, and for Brandon's benefit. The building was originally designed for a on-call fire department. Now it's a full-time fire department. And I got concerned just like you did, so then I requested to walk through, and Matt took me through, and Kelly took me through the building. When you see it firsthand and realize the struggles and the problems that they have there, you have a fire department that's using, I call them zip strips, the stupid strips that you put in, that you plug everything into. They got tons of them in there. And that's usually what you usually get called on, one of these strips causing a fire in a structure somewhere. But they just don't have adequate supply. That's why Matt went through the trouble of having this outside engineer coming in and checking this, and I fully sympathize with you. It's just like when we did the radio project, trying to do it at a fall town meeting too. These things really need to be addressed. Putting it off, how long is it gonna take for us to go through the process to get the engineering and the project underway? That might help you. That's why I'm asking.
Right, so this would be a two-step process. We would go to BFCC for designer selection and design the electrical system to the point of construction documents, and then bid out the work as a separate. So there'd be 2 procurements. So even if November town meeting, if this is on the warrant and town meeting supports it in November, we probably wouldn't get all the work done until the following fall, just by the time you get all the procurements done. Another concern, Ellie, is I hate wasting money, and the station is underpowered, so what, in the report, and it's a really good report in that it's very clear, it's very short. there's so much power being drawn off the existing service that the appliances don't have enough power to operate. So they brown out, and what that does is it ruins motors, pumps, fans, because they don't have enough power to do what they're supposed to do. And modern appliances are designed only to tolerate voltage spikes or decreases of a certain size. After that, you're starting to damage equipment. So it's an upfront capital cost, but I think it is a more responsible thing to do than to keep coming back in the operating budget to the taxpayer saying, yeah, we fixed the Plymouth event again, that's the fourth time we burned out the motor because it's a brownout, we know about it. I think that's, if somebody tells me to do it, I do it that way. But if it's on my own dime or my own volition, I would say that's dereliction of duty not to address appliances that are constantly breaking. We have been so fortunate, and I knock on wood when I say this, when we have a really difficult emergency powered transition with the police department's equipment here in this building, and that's a generator project that's underway now, or at the fire department, that we haven't lost a significant piece of equipment that just gets fried out. I mean, I think you may have lost a coffee machine or a couple other things downstairs. At some point, it might be a network server or our internet connection or something else that we need to operate. And then now you're talking about service loss.
Yeah.
It's not that it can't wait, Ellie, it's just that it really shouldn't.
Well, I'll just forewarn everybody, I'm going to abstain from voting on this.
Yeah.
But if we have to vote 5 minutes ago.
I'll write you a note, Brandon. You won't be
The
talked
one
to.
other point that I would like to bring up to you is when I was walking through with Matt and Kelly, and Fred actually walked through with us as well. Fred Fontaine. Kelly had said that if we're under generator power, you can't open the doors. They have to be manually
I know,
open.
we were told that a while ago. I remember hearing that
Yeah,
before. So
yeah.
I heard it when we were discussing it before the annual
Yeah.
town meetings.
It's just all these factors in there. If
Well,
you're,
still,
if,
I'm going to abstain, so I'm just forewarning you that.
yeah, okay.
And that's my reason.
In the event that, and I need to ask this question, we have 5 voting members and Ellie abstains, what's the issue with that? Because you need 5.
But
Because it's a- it's a 9-person group.
Because she votes to an abstention, she's still a voting member.
I know
You still
that,
have a-
but you need 5 out of the 9
No.
votes.
No, you need a majority of the,
Oh, okay, all right, good. All right, anybody else have any questions before he throws that pen at me?
No, I'd
No worries.
just like to motion to recommend the requests of capital Article 12 as presented.
I have a motion by Shirley, I need a second.
I will second that motion.
Seconded by Brandon. Any other questions?
I'd just like to make a comment why I'm doing this is because anything that is electrical that doesn't meet what is needed for safety, to me, it needs to be fixed.
It's kind of hard, even with Kelly's pictures, it's kind of hard to absorb what the situation is there. You physically see it, it makes a difference in your thought process.
Yep.
But anyways, we have a motion and a second on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Abstaining?
Yes.
There we go. All right. All in favor was Ben DeCino, Brandon Ogier, Shirley Mazinski, myself, Mike Fitzpatrick, and abstaining was Ellie Chesbro. Do we have anything that was not reasonably anticipated 48 hours in advance?
Are we holding, excuse me,
All right.
Mike, are we holding, held back on that other one?
and I,
Oh, discussion for the HVAC.
it wouldn't, HVAC.
Sorry, I didn't see that.
discussion, in a nutshell, I'm going to try to get it eligible for federal funds. And I'll report back to this committee and to the BFCC and the Select Board on how successful I am. There's a part of ARPA that says the funds may be used to improve heating, ventilation, and air conditioning in a public building under, I can't write this stuff because it's silly, but appropriate circumstances. I think what they're saying is that there's a public safety or public health component to the building, schools, prisons, hospitals. And I'm going to argue fire stations, because we can't have COVID in the building and lose the department again, because we've already done it once.
Okay,
But
so,
I will have to interact with the United States Treasury and some eligibility officer in the bowels of some massive building in Washington to get an answer, but I'll try.
so in light of that, we should just table that one and.
You don't need to, I wasn't asking the committee to take action on that
Okay.
today. I was just
All right.
giving you notice that there's another component to the building overhaul that I'm going to try to seek alternative funding for. I have the most recent report, Mr. Chairman, from Omni Environmental. I've got a copy for everybody, including the note taker, including, everybody.
And this is
Not me.
back.
We're almost there,
Article
Brandon.
9.
We're almost there, bud.
But I'm also going to ask that the committee pass over it, and you'll just have to either have another meeting, Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
because Adam's feedback is he does not yet have a quote on the tank and pump replacement. And I don't really want to, I'm not good at estimating that kind of stuff. I don't want to put the committee in a bad spot by giving you a number and then having you vote it and then it be way off.
Yep.
I was low on the overage. So on page 4, there's correspondence from Omni Environmental.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank
you,
you.
guys.
Thank you.
Page 3,
There's
page 2. Page 1.
So this is what happens when the town administrator leaves his glasses on the vanity.
Tank estimate is on page 2. Tank 1 is estimated at $5,075. Task 1.
So, Mr. Chairman, that 2 that I swear looks like a 4
Okay.
to, anybody.
So I got the right page, I just had the wrong line. All right, got it. We're making a good page. Good.
Good Lord. The estimated cost of remaining tasks for this project are $150,495. The engineer carries a 10% contingency for unforeseen conditions of $15,000. So the total estimated cost of remaining tasks, $165,545. There is approximately $16,500 remaining in insurance monies under the cap, leaving an estimated $134,000 to the town. So the cleanup alone will be $134,000 and the tank and pump on top of that. So making it more important to get a good number for that, so that we're,
So we can leave it as is and just amend it, correct?
We didn't.
Because we already voted on that.
No,
no, you did not.
We didn't
held-
vote
I
on it?
asked you to hold on it. No, I meant to get you the
Sorry, I
documentation.
put a cross mark to my thing.
You could put a mental placeholder of
That's okay.
whatever number you feel comfortable with, but
Okay, anything else from anybody? Make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion made by Shirley, seconded by Brandon.
It's going to be late.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, Brandon, for holding out.
Thank you.